Welcome to the Unfinished Business Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Mulvin, and this is a show where we sit down with CEOs, leaders, visionaries, and creatives who are out there changing the world through their business, through their organization, through their leadership, or through their creativity. Because it doesn't matter who you are or what you've accomplished. Even someone like Teresa Corbett still has something that they wanted to accomplish in their career. And so we explore those stories here on Unfinished Business with Eric Mulvin.
Tech connect to amplify. Unfinished business. Human intelligence plus AI. Unfinished business. Moonshot goals that launch you high. Unfinished business. Listen close and you'll learn why.
This episode is brought to you by PackBiz Outsourcing. At PackBiz, we help software, e-commerce, taxi, and NEMT companies outsource their customer support and back office work with a dedicated team in the Philippines. These are full-time remote staff who work as part of your team, handling calls, emails, chat support, and admin tasks so you can improve support, scale faster, and keep costs under control. For example, one client cut out over 6 support roles to PackBiz dispatch teams. So if you're trying to lower cost or scale support, visit pack-biz.com to learn more, or give us a call Monday through Friday during business hours at 480-771-3009. All right. Today, I'm excited to introduce you guys to our next guest. She is Las Vegas-based executive coach and Vistage Chair, who helps CEOs and senior leaders build themselves, their companies, and their communities by design rather than default. She's been coaching people in one capacity or another for more than 20 years. And as a Vistage Best Practice Chair, she leads peer advisory groups of CEOs and key executives through the highest stake decisions of growing an enterprise and living a life worth leading. Her work rests on one conviction: the best leaders are champions of their people and of what's possible. Before coaching became her full-time calling, she cut her teeth in the world of business through the management training program at McMaster-Carr, and then spent several years as an operator running day-to-day operations for 2 Las Vegas construction companies. So she coaches leaders off the field and onto the sideline from a chair that she actually sat in. And in 2027, she will publish her first book, a project nearly a decade in the making, its roots reaching back to her late mother. Please help me welcome Tonya Twitchell. Hey, Tonya, welcome to the show.
Hi, Eric. Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. Awesome to have you here. And so a little background, I got to meet Tonya a couple months back in Las Vegas, and she came out and was a guest for a nonprofit that we support here at my company, City Impact Center. And so it's great to get to see you again, this time virtually.
Indeed, yes. And what a great organization at City Impact Center. They've got such an amazing story, and the level of contribution that they do without a lot of fanfare. I mean, they just show up and do good in our community. It was pretty awesome. So thank you for including me in that event.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. And, that's part of why I do this show, to bring more attention to stuff like that's going on that a lot of people might not even be aware of, that's in their own backyard. So glad you were able to come out. So yeah, we've had other people connected with Vistage. We've had a lot of speakers on the show. I've had my own personal Vistage coach chair here as well. And so I'm excited to have you on because I love talking about Vistage with a lot of people. In fact, my last guest yesterday, I was like, do you know about Vistage? And he was like, yes, I'm trying to get in to be a speaker. So, but talk to me a little bit on, I had in the intro what you do there, but explain, if people may be listening to the show for the first time or hearing you for the first time, what is a Vistage Chair and what do you do?
Vistage is the greatest thing that I've ever had a chance to be a part of. I mean, you're a member, so you know personally the value of Vistage. For those that aren't aware, Vistage is the largest CEO coaching organization in the world. We have the privilege of championing 45,000 members around the globe, and we work not only with CEOs and business owners, but with members of their teams at all levels in their organization through a variety of different programs. The heart of the work that we do in Vistage is bringing high integrity leaders who are at a peer-to-peer leader, so business owners in a room with other business owners or senior executives in a room with other senior executives, to roll up their sleeves and to leave their armor at the door and to ask questions and be open and vulnerable and to dive into topics on the professional side as well as the personal side in service to one another and to helping themselves be better leaders and better contributors to their companies and to our communities.
Yeah, that's a great, nice little summary. I'd probably drag it out a little bit longer. Yeah, and so there's chapters all over the country and all over the world. I know there's other countries that they're also in too. So wherever you're at, you probably could find one somewhere close by that you can get connected with. But specifically, you're out in Vegas, and if I remember correctly, you're kind of unique. You have a lot of groups, if I remember right.
I do. I really jumped in and didn't look back. So I have the privilege of leading 2 groups for CEOs and business owners. I lead a group for senior level executives. I lead another group for folks who are earlier in their career or kind of those rising stars who are newer to this idea of supervising and management. And because I'm not busy enough, I'm adding 2 more groups in January. And I also have the privilege of championing chairs as the chair of chairs, so to speak, in Las Vegas, as well as in the Montana and Utah markets.
Right. Awesome. People who probably aren't familiar with Vistage probably don't even realize how big of a deal that is, that you're helping support other chairs as well. But as far as I know, you don't just you can't graduate from college and then start becoming a Vistage chair. So you have to have some experience in the world to have some knowledge to talk about what business leaders have to go through. So I guess we could start there and a little bit on your background. What led you, what was your business background? What got you into being a chair?
I would say my pathway to Vistage chairing was really kind of accidental, which ironically, I think a lot of other Vistage chairs would say. Right out of college, I didn't fully know what I wanted to do with my life. So I said yes to a management training program with a fantastic company outside of Chicago, McMaster Car Supply Company. And I didn't realize the value of the program and the value of the investment they made in me until probably 15 years ago, right? To think about how I had a front row seat to really learning marketing, operations, sales. They really moved us throughout the organization and gave us a broad understanding of what are all of the ingredients that are required for a successful organization and for a successful team. For a variety of reasons, that wasn't meant to be my forever home. And I ultimately decided to leave there and lean into what became an even greater passion than business, at least in that season, which was coaching and training, although I did it through the landscape of teaching reading enrichment programs. I found a company also when I was based in Chicago that taught reading classes for 4-year-olds all the way up through adults. And so as you got into middle school, high school, it was more study skills and reading comprehension, not the fundamentals of reading. The adult level, it was speed reading and strategies for effectiveness and efficiency. And the more that I swam in those waters and started to see the gains that people could make, it just started to click. I really loved being in a room of learners, helping to move people forward. And so I would say that that's probably where my path toward Vistage began. From there, I moved to Las Vegas, started my own consulting and training company, did some a hodgepodge of different things in my early 20s, eventually found my way as a student to a program called PSI Seminars. They offer professional and personal leadership development courses. Got really interested in this whole person approach, this idea that how we show up on one side of our lives absolutely impacts how we show up on the other, and the stories that we tell and that we buy into about what's possible for us either move us forward powerfully or they become the ceilings and the limitations that that without conscious work and effort, we just don't ever realize that we can break through. Fortunately, I had an opportunity shortly thereafter to actually go to work for that organization. And pre-kids, I spent about 2.5 years leading a 90-day coaching program. So it was every 90 days, sometimes multiple sequences on top of each other. And I got to work with people who were eager and excited to create real change in their lives. I was a coach for a lot of those individuals. I was also became over time the coach of coaches. So I started coaching other people on this art form of coaching, got myself certified through a variety of different coaching modalities, kind of all in this same season. And my mentor, Teresa Corbett, who you very kindly mentioned at the opening of the show, is still to this day has the biggest impact on who I have become, my philosophy toward what's possible, the way that I orient toward my coaching, and it just has been such a gift.
Awesome. That's an incredible journey that you've gone through there, and a lot of education, a lot of getting in front of people who are also hungry to learn. I think about Vistage, like, it's a choice for people to be there. No one, as far as I know, no one's forcing them to be there. Maybe there's the board is like, you need to be part of this group. But for the most part, like, they're there willingly and being vulnerable, sharing everything on their own, which I think is, it's pretty unique in that, sometimes people are in those positions and they're kind of forced to be there, or like they're stuck. Where here it's like, I don't know, you got people that are super engaged, super willing to take that information. So let's see, with all that training though, or all that coaching that you got to do, especially those 90-day courses, I'm guessing that was amazing networking at a very young age, getting you in front of a lot of people that are trying to be high performing. So I'm guessing that had to have been influential for your career to be in front of all those different people.
Absolutely. And again, it's one of those things that at the time I didn't realize the value of the waters that I was swimming and learning inside of. Looking back, right, I got exposed to a variety of industries, a variety of backgrounds. It's similar to what I navigate in the world of Vistage today, where no two members have exactly the same company or even the same industry within a group, right? And no two people have the same story or trajectory of how they got to where they are or vision of where they want to get to. And it really required me at a very early phase in my coaching journey to become Gumby-like. Did you ever watch that show with Gumby? Right,
Yep.
to figure out, how do I become flexible? How do I become adaptable? And I was already primed because of the work that I had done in my own personal leadership development journey to recognize that I was in the driver's seat, that it wasn't fair and it wasn't effective for me to sit and hope that the people that came to me for those programs or that came to me for coaching were going to magically be the right fit for me. That the best way for me to move myself forward and also to be of service in the larger world was to figure out, how do I become adaptable and effective with as many different types of people and backgrounds and approaches and perspectives and cultures as I possibly can. And so that really, to this day, that continues to be something that I'm mindful of and require myself to be continually learning and leaning into new things and trying to figure out what's my next learning edge so that I'm modeling what I'm asking the people I'm championing to do on their side.
That's really fascinating, because I feel like I hear so much in business that, you got to find your ideal client. You have to find the person that matches you. And you're here talking about you're trying to adapt to everybody, and so you could be in any situation, work with anybody. And it's really refreshing to hear, because there's a lot of rejection and, oh, we can't work with this kind of company because of this and that. I just think that's a cool perspective to have.
I mean, it goes back to what I said earlier about the stories we tell really create the future and the possibilities for us. The moment I walk in and say, there is no way that I'm the right fit for that client, it is guaranteed that that is exactly the outcome that's going to occur. Now, on the flip side, I might walk in and say, I am the right fit, and it still might not work out. But at least, right, I try to walk in a place of curious neutrality, walking in and to say, I have no idea if I'm the right fit or not. However, I'm curious and I'm open and I'm eager to figure out what are the needs and the interests of the person on the other side, and how does that align with what I am ready and able and willing to give and contribute from a place of true contribution, not from a place of requirement or strings or X has to happen and then Y and then Z.
Yeah, that is a great framework to go into those meetings. And this is a concept I think that I really did learn in Vistage. We had a speaker, Vered Kogan was her name, and I followed her podcast for a little while. Should reach back out to her. But she had this whole thing about belief system, and that we've created these beliefs, some of them dating back to our childhood, and that they get pretty rigid, and we start telling ourselves these stories that can be completely far from reality. But you look for things around you that validate this belief system. And then, as a business owner, you end up you stuck in this corner and you feel like there's no way out, which is one thing I really love about Vistage, because people can challenge those beliefs and be like, no, what are you saying? Like, you could do this and you're more than capable. In fact, you're probably the best qualified, yet you can't see it yourself. So yeah, I love that concept, because it's something I really try to teach people. Definitely, I'm sure you see this. A lot of people don't realize that they're telling themselves these stories all day long, that like, where is this coming from? And how is that serving you? And many times it's probably harming you more than helping you.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the language that you just used is language that I use often in my conversations, right? What is the story that you're telling? And is it serving you in this moment? Right? I use an analogy often in my conversations with clients and members around suitcases. I think we all are dragging these suitcases behind us, whether we recognize it or not. And to Vered's point, 80% of the beliefs, the core beliefs that dictate and at an unconscious level point us in the direction that we take, and the actions that we do and the reactions and the way that we orient came from ages 0 to 8. I mean, so it's like, if I think about the suitcase that I'm dragging that's informing my life, it was packed at best by an 8-year-old and probably by a 3, 4, 5-year-old. Now, I have raised humans who have been those ages. I know that they're not the best people to be deciding what should go in a suitcase. And so the challenge, the opportunity for all of us is, and this is where the Vistage Room is so powerful, because it's a monthly opportunity to do this, is to put that suitcase on the table and open it up and peer in and go, how did that pair of socks get tucked in the corner? Those don't fit anymore, and to toss them back out, and to be more mindful of what we're putting in by design, what we're putting in that speaks to and invites who we want to become, rather than locking us into who we may have been 5 years ago or even 5 minutes ago, if we don't want to be that way going forward.
Yeah, I definitely I think that's one of the things that I got most out of Vistage over the last, I don't know, I've been in there 7 years now almost. And it seems like some kind of crazy concept, or like for someone on the outside, when you're first learning about it, you're like, what? Because I don't know, it's like something you might have seen on a TikTok video, that doesn't make sense. But over session after session, we had speakers that are like experts on the brain and talk to you about how the brain functions and why, these stories we tell ourselves are feeding the subconscious. And over time, it's like, wow. And so now I find myself trying to tell this stuff to people, and I feel like it sounds crazy almost. I don't know. Do you ever have any challenges trying to get these concepts into people's heads, or people are like, do they ever reject it? Like, no way, this can't be true.
Oh, absolutely. And if I'm honest, I think I rejected it when I first heard some of these concepts, right? It's almost the stuff of fantasy until you start to look back and start to connect the dots and sort of slow ourselves down and look at, okay, well, where did that come from? And we start and listen to the words that come out of our mouths in moments when we're not kind of on, right? When we're just casually talking, or those kind of throwaway comments sometimes. That's actually where the gold mine is, because that's usually some old belief that's creeping in and going, yep, that's just the way the world works. And if we catch it and pay attention to it and look at it, it allows us to go, okay, well, is it? Maybe, but what if it's not? Or what is a corollary for that? Or um, if I just wanted to tell another story, I don't even have to believe it, but if I just wanted to come up with another possibility, what's one? And then the moment we start identifying one other possibility, we discover two, and then three, and then four. And before you know it, we start to go, well, how does mine stack up against these? I want that one better. All right, if I'm shopping for a story, I'm going to take that one, please. And now we have a chance to move to a different relationship with it.
Yeah, I think that's also such a powerful concept too, that and realization that they're not like we're not stuck with these stories. You could change them out. And I mean, probably a good example would be like if you just up and move somewhere and went to a whole other city that no one ever knew you, you could easily make these up and no one would know any different. But you could start doing that today with the people around you. Just start saying, hey, I am a hard worker now. I used to be lazy, but now I'm not. Or I know one of the ones that I catch myself saying all the time, and I've gotten a lot better at, but I used to always say, I'm bad at answering emails. I'll let them sit for a little while before I get back to people. And I'm like, it's one of those like beliefs where I'm like, am I? Like, why do I keep saying this to myself? So yeah, but there's so many little examples that I bet most people don't even realize they're saying. I think it just takes people around us to call us out.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's what talk to me a little bit about then, because I mean, as a coach, you're in the people in your Vistage group, you're trying to move them out of these stories they're telling themselves and to create those new stories. So what's something that you do to help get them out of being stuck?
Gosh, let me think about which piece do I want to talk about here. A big part of it is a big part of the magic. I would say step one is protecting the time, protecting the space, right? Building before we really can get into the stories. Step one is, am I able to get them start to step toward the edge of the field, right? So an analogy that I use often is, and I've lived this and struggled with this myself when I ran a couple of construction companies, right? This tension that we all find ourselves in when we're actively in the doors of a business is feeling like, I need to be right on the field. I need to be as close to the football as possible, or at least close enough that I can see, and the guy who's holding the football can hear me if I see something that I think he's going to miss. And we want to be really close to the action. But the closer we are to the action, the smaller our perspective is, and the more likely an incomplete story is guiding the decisions and the way that we're showing up, because we just don't have the perspective. We don't have the we haven't we're generally in this like go 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 sort of state. And so the challenge first, before I would say long before I talk about the stories, is how do we get you to start stepping back and trusting and settling into a different possibility, which is on the sidelines, where yes, you can step onto the field if there's something that truly warrants. But on the sidelines, they can still hear you enough, right? If it's critical, you can see more of what's going on. And they're actually going to play and perform better because you're not there breathing on them, and you're letting them settle into what's possible and have more belief of what they're capable of, because you're not there literally trying to move their arm or hand them the ball or tell them what to do. So I would say that's really step one of where I start. And sometimes we're there for a long time wrestling with this tension, particularly when a company is experiencing fast growth, or a landscape where things are changing, or when tariffs were really sort of kicking up in unexpected ways not that long ago. And, so there's a lot of reasons why we can justify running onto the field. My focus is to go, time out, hold on, pause. Let's start with just that story. What's the story about why you and only you have to be on the field? Let's start there.
Yeah, that is definitely a common problem I've been very guilty of too, is just trying to do it all and being the bottleneck. And, as much as I hear the message, it's a constant process. I guess let's just say that. Like, you delegate stuff out, you put new stuff on your plate, and, a year or two goes by and you don't really realize that you've now become the bottleneck again. And it's like it's a constant reevaluating. It's not like, oh, I've got this, I'm back on the sideline, I'm set. You get kind of sucked in as a business owner a lot of times to the playing field, and you got to constantly reevaluate to see, wait a second, how did I get here? Let me back up so I could see the full picture again.
Yeah, and I would say that probably the the most important story for any of us to wrestle with, whether we're in business or we're just a human in the landscape of life, is this story that somebody sold us that we really want to buy. And trust me, I really would like it to be true, but it's just not true, which is that there's this thing called stability, that there's this moment in time that someday is going to magically exist where I can say, everything is checked off on my list. I've done it. Nothing on that list is going to change or need to be reevaluated or need me to come back to it. Like, done. Very rarely does that happen with the things that are most worthy of us purposing our time and our lives toward.
Yep. And being in the position you're in, you get a chance to help business leaders throughout their journey. And then ultimately, for some people, their goal is to exit, sell the company, retire on a beach somewhere, maybe and whatever the next thing is. But do you have any interesting stories about people who made it to there and they got their goal, they got what they wanted, but maybe they weren't really still fully satisfied? I wonder how
Yeah,
much that happens.
several. I mean, I would say that it happens unless we're designing for it to specifically not happen.
Hmm.
As an act that we're doing as intentionally as all of the actions that we're doing to get the company ready for sale, then the odds are high. You're going to get to that day, you're going to get the check, you're going to turn in your keys, you're going to step away, you're going to go to this thing that you've been visualizing sort of and go, I don't know if this is actually where I want to be, because it's you go for, and especially in the final stages of selling a business or transferring a business or whatever that succession plan is where you're stepping out, it is typically a go 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 period where there's a lot happening, there's a lot of moving parts, so it's a lot of activity and intensity. It's hard to go from that to effectively a full stop unless you've really prepared yourself for, that's what I want, and I'm gearing up for it, and I'm mentally and emotionally preparing for, that is the right answer for me, at least initially, on the other side of this exit. Yeah, we spent a lot of time in my across my one-to-ones with my clients as well as at the group level, talking about what is it that you're wanting on the other side, what do you think you want it to look like. And we've had some great members over the years who've come back and said, I did parts of it well, here's what I would offer, and then I didn't even think about this piece or that piece, or this part was incomplete in my planning. And so that really has been a gift to service as well.
That's some interesting insight there, because I think a lot of people, in business, I mean, not everybody, they're set to sell their company. Um, I know I've had some recent guests that are like convinced it's uh, not a good thing to do. You should just keep your business going. Although, sometimes it's time to retire. But I think a lot of people, they look at, business and like, yeah, your goal, like it's like the football or sports analogy, like you get to the end of the game, the time runs out, you're done, you go retire. But it's a lot more complicated than that. And I think it's just so interesting that you, I mean, you see it in sports sometimes. I can't remember the specific athlete, but I remember hearing a speech and they were talking about, they won like all the championships or what. I think it was in golf. He's won a lot of titles, and he's like, yeah, you know what? It's not that it's okay. Like he just didn't seem like fully satisfied. And for people who are like, I want to be in that position, like they don't understand it. But it's interesting for you to see that, and not just one person, but lots of people that have gone through this, gone through the journey. And it, I don't know, it's a cliche, right? It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But how much time are we spending building up our businesses, living this out every day, and then you get to the end and it's like, oh, now what? So
Yeah, and I think part of it too is our businesses, in a lot of ways become our identities. In a lot of ways, they are a core part of our social community and our connectedness. Certainly for the Vistage community, I think a lot of the members across our Vistage community are they're in it to make a difference. They're in it to, right, they're excited about it. It brings them joy. There are a lot of intangible rewards and payback that come with being in the top seat or being a part of a team that's doing interesting work. And when all of a sudden that gets handed to somebody else, there's absolutely a void, and I would say multiple voids that get filled. And you have to think about, now I've got, not only do I have that, but if I'm married, if I have a spouse at home, I've got to navigate this dynamic of, I used to be out of the house for this many hours a day. Now I'm back. Like, how are we going to navigate this new sort of coming together? What's our vision? There's all sorts of dynamics that can very easily go unnoticed if we're just focusing on that. Let me get my business sold and handed off. Check, that's done. Well, there's the epilogue or the next chapter that comes behind that we have to keep reading into.
Yep. And then you end up becoming a Vistage Chair. No, that's what some of them end up doing.
Yeah,
Coming
absolutely.
back
And so, I mean,
and giving
again,
back.
if they're looking to give back and continue being in a place that's energizing and learning and of contribution, Vistage Sharing is a great place to do it.
Yeah. Well, being that, you do get to have like tons of conversations all day, every day of the year, and you get to really see these journeys up close. What are some things that separate the top leaders, the ones that are really high perform, that are able to, because, a lot of people want to grow their company, like, oh, I want to 10x my company. A lot of people say that. In reality, I've met very few people that actually get to do that. Even being part of Vistage for a long time, you're like, businesses are growing, but to get to that level, that scale, some people end up becoming a household name with their companies. What is it that those people are doing that the other ones might not be doing?
I would say there are a few ingredients. One is this unrelenting curiosity for what's possible, curiosity for what am I not seeing. Like this, it's this almost requirement to look in the places that other people aren't willing to look and to sit with things that aren't comfortable and to ask questions through a different lens and to not be afraid of whatever data point or whatever situation comes their way, to really view it with curiosity and to say, there's some reason why this is here in this moment. What can I learn from it? What can I contribute to it? What can I do? Versus a lot of businesses that don't get to those marks, there's a lot of starting and stopping. There's a lot of sort of attempting to outmaneuver or avoid some of those things that if we just take a breath and go head on into them and view them as a gift, odds are high we're going to come out in a much better position on the other side.
That's really fascinating. Because you want to, we're human nature. We want to avoid conflict. We want to, there's an issue in the way, like, all right, how do we go around this so we don't have to deal with this? But that's also, it sounds like, where some of the opportunities lie. And I'm guessing it's probably, if everyone is skipping over that part and you're like, wait a second, there's an opportunity here. This could be
Yeah, and it's about being willing to lean into things that others in the marketplace are maybe reluctant or having I don't know if that's a good idea. It's like, AI. I love that a big part of your work is focused on AI. I am like kicking all of my members in the butts monthly. What are we doing? How are we leaning in? How are we leading the charge? And for myself, when AI first sort of started debuting, I was not initially immediately excited to lean in. I mean, I had my own reaction of, oh, do I really have the time or the energy to learn this? And it's changing so fast. And can't I just wait? And what about this? And I had to get over my own stories and say, well, the reality is I have two choices. Unless I think that AI is not going to be here in 10 years, which to anyone who's listening, AI is going to be here in 10 years, right? That's a falsehood if we think it's going to go away. So if it's not going away and it's here and it's moving fast already, it's like a boulder going down the hill. It's only going to get faster and it's only going to get harder. And the cost of entry to get in and to get up to speed and being able to do something that is powerful and fundamentally advantageous in a way that others are not going to be able to benefit from, it's a small window. So we have to lean in. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to get in and start doing something with it so that we aren't left behind.
Yeah, that is a great analogy because I do feel like it is snowballing, and what was Chat GPT today is now AI in all of our softwares. Like, I heard someone talking about this recently where, like, even if you want to ignore it and put your head in the sand, like, we're all being trained to become comfortable with AI, whether we like it or not. If you go on social media and you scroll through there, you're seeing posts generated by AI. AI is curating what you're even seeing, the ads you're looking at, and I mean, that's just a small example, and you can go on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
But it does go back to, again, those beliefs too, that you're right. Like, if you're saying, like, there's no way we could be good at AI, this is too complicated. Well, you've pretty much written your own story. And it was part of why, like, for me and my company, when it was one of our clients that was really pushing me to get into Chat GPT when it first came out.
Mhm.
And just like you're hammering your guests, like, I think we were on like weekly calls. He's like, "Are you using it yet, Eric? Come on, are you using it?" And so I started creating the story for our company, saying, well, there was a phrase I used to say all the time that I've been bringing back more and more lately, that I want to do things in 5 years using technology that doesn't exist today. And I started saying that back in like 2015, 2016, well before AI. And now, like, that's so true. Like, everything you're dealing with AI, like, who knows what this is going to look like in 5 years, let alone next year or the year after. So it's just going to get harder and harder to jump in, though, for sure, if you're not doing it now. So with all the people you're coaching in the group and you're trying to push them along, like, what's something that's helped get them into AI, or what's something that has got the leaders bought in to say, oh yeah, this is changing my business? Because I know there's got to be a lot of examples of people that have found success with it.
Yeah, I would say that so first, we've certainly leaned into the Vistage speaker community, and we've had some tremendously powerful AI speakers come and work with us, which has opened our eyes to what's possible today and what could be possible going forward. So that was a big step one, was just getting people into the conversation and to start to see and go, I had no idea that that could even be a possibility, let alone that I might be able to figure it out for myself or my team. So that was step one. Step two is I'm really encouraging my members just to get in, to not require themselves to necessarily know what the long-term play is for AI for their company. But to step one, get in and just date it a little bit, right? Get in and play with it. Get in and do some fun projects. Get in and get proof of concept of something and figure out how to create one workflow inside of it, even if it's just some sort of ridiculous thing that inadvertently turns out to be helpful. I'll give you an example of one I did for myself. My family and I recently went on a 2-week trip to Peru, where we were staying in tree houses for the first half of the trip and then going and exploring Machu Picchu and all the Incan ruins for the back half. And as we were thinking about what do we pack and itineraries and all this stuff, I could feel myself getting stressed and overwhelmed with all of the logistics. And I said, okay, this is a perfect project for AI. So I used the microphone feature. I said, let me tell you everything I think I know about the trip, everything I'm worried about, everything I feel like we need to figure out. Ask me a bunch of questions. What can you do for me? And it started to say, well, can you upload your any itineraries or your flight documents or tickets, or like, sure. So I uploaded that. I said, great. It made me a master itinerary. It told me stuff I didn't even think I needed to know that turned out to be helpful, right? Then I said, well, okay, I need to figure out a packing list, and I'm pretty sure I don't have anything that I need. What do I need for me? And then I went and manually started ordering things online and realized, well, this is going to take a while. I've got 2 other kids in my household I need to shop for. So I followed my kids around for a day, got measurements of every part of their body that I thought might be relevant, said to the AI that I was using, here are the measurements for my kids. These are the types of things that you've said that we need to pack and I need to source. You know our plans, you know the weather, you know all the things that are important to me about how much space we have in the bags. Help. And it said, do you like to shop on Amazon? Where do you like to shop? And I said, Amazon's great. It went on to Amazon and it gave me shopping list with links for everything I needed to order. And at the time I wasn't comfortable just linking it directly to my Amazon. I don't give it my credit cards yet to shop, but in the space of a few minutes, bloop, 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 I moved things over to my shopping cart. Things started arriving the next day. It was the easiest shopping. I might shop that way for the rest of my life. Like, it was the best experience, all from a moment of, I'm not sure what you can do. So you tell me, AI, what can you do? What can you do with this thing that I'm trying to solve for? Let's just play.
Yeah, that is an awesome example. I love using it for travel. I had another guest on, Lindsay Mateus, and she was a speaker on stage, and I was like, I got to talk to her because we did the exact same thing. We did a trip to Sweden and Norway to see the Northern Lights last, like March, April. And both of us used ChatGPT to build out the itinerary. I took it a step further and I just sent it off to my assistant. I'm like, here, book all the stuff for me. I'm too busy running my company. So just, pick the best one, just go with the recommendation. So I will say the one thing I would have done differently was look at the itinerary, because it had me like bounce back and forth unnecessarily between like two places. I was like, we could have streamlined that a little bit. But for me, the funnest thing was getting there and because I'm like the kind of guy that hates watching movie previews because I'm like, oh, it gives it away. And so the entire trip was just a delightful surprise every step of the way, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what this city looks like. I had no idea. Oh, this is, this looks like a Christmas globe that we're flying into. Like, I had no idea that this little town would be so amazing. So I had a lot of fun with it that way. But that's an interesting way. I saw someone else doing that where they put all their outfits in the Chat GPT and then had it pick like which outfit should they wear today or something. But there's so I now for like the last probably 2 years, I do that for every big trip, because like we go to Asia, I have like maybe 14 different modes of transportation, flights, boats and stuff we got to take, different, like so many different cities. So I put all the itinerary in, all the hotels, some of the interests we have. And then every time I have a question, because people are asking me all the time, when does this flight leave? When does that go? Like, just ask my AI and it gives me the results. But that's a fun one. And that is interesting, is it's making travel a little more fun, taking away the painful parts, which is a great analogy for business, because it's the same thing. What are the painful parts of your business that before you had to manually do it? Now you could just delegate that off to AI. So that's a good example.
It's like, how many businesses have known for forever, we should document our standard operating procedures. We should have a list of this or a checklist for that. It is so easy to do that now. And the price of entry, so to speak, to have AI help you get rough drafts that you can then go and refine and sign off on, and in return, literally make your company more valuable. It's like, okay, come on. Why are we not leaning in? This is a gift. Let's leverage it as such. And then the more that we play with it, the more that we're going to open up different possibilities for what we might want to do.
Yeah. I've had some ideas even around coaching. Have you come up with any interesting ideas, or have you been able to leverage it all for, because I feel like anybody can elevate their, whatever they're doing. I don't know if you've thought of anything there.
I love, I am really, as you know, as a Vistage member, right? Confidentiality is the law of my land. So I'm very careful about what I put in and about the guardrails that I have around what can be exposed or moved out of a particular sandbox, right? What I I like to move really fast and I do not like to be trapped behind a desk. So for me, the best way to get my best thinking is when I'm moving. And so I have started a variety of different projects and I will talk into my AI and have it capture my thoughts rather than me sitting down and trying to write it all out. And then I come back to it. I've got an initial draft of the process or the idea or um, the exercise or the email that I want to send out or whatever it is, right? And it makes it easier. It makes it more fun. I have trained it at this point on everything related to who I am and well, not everything, but I'm working on right getting it up to speed on who I am and how I think and how I orient and so it's in the background handling things like speaker bookings and coordinating logistics and everything that isn't my highest value and my highest contribution and requiring that human ingredient. I'm outsourcing to my AI and over time I've got multiple kind of AI assistants in different phases of learning and I'm just continuing to add them as I go.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Because yeah, I think I love the ideas that we have all the guests share on the different ways people could apply, and we've had some really great stuff. So that's another really great tip for people listening, because I know there's a lot of people that maybe you're using it a little bit, but I think well, one thing for sure, another phrase I like to say is you got to get comfortable doing things that are uncomfortable using AI because like maybe you need to tackle that tough conversation or maybe it's even with a client. You could start role playing that. One of my staff members built something like that just for helping us in sales. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even know you could do that. Like, cause it's
Yeah.
constantly evolving and changing and it's getting more advanced. So cool. Well, I wanted to shift gears a little bit, I guess maybe opposite of AI, sort of. I mean, it touches this too, but your background, you spent some time in construction, and uh, that I wanted to talk to you a bit about that because not too many women business leaders in construction. That's a pretty male-dominated field, I would imagine.
Mhm.
Talk to me about how that helped shape your coaching and your career.
Yeah, great question. So I'm a person who likes to say yes to things and I have a really hard time saying no when the person asking me is someone I'm deeply invested in. And so I very accidentally found myself in the world of construction. It started with one of my former coaching clients who reached out to me and said, I really want to expand my operation to another state. He felt very strongly that for it to be successful, he needed to move and be boots on the ground in the other state. And he said to me, that leaves a gaping hole in our Las Vegas operations. I need someone to step in and keep the ship running. And oh, by the way, we have a lot of work that we could do to improve, and you're better at that than I am. Will you say yes? And my kids were young. My husband and I really literally flipped our worlds upside down to make sure that we could still have one of us home with the kids and for me to say yes to this opportunity. I went in really not knowing what I said yes to, which probably was a good thing, and then discovered how much there was to learn. And now, for me, I would say one of my superpowers is I'm very good at getting up to speed on things quickly. So it was um, a challenge, but it also was really enjoyable because I really like to do that. However, to your point, it's an interesting dynamic to be a woman in construction, particularly, and I'm going to say more so when I moved to the second company, which was on the commercial side. That was a little bit more unusual than company number one, which was in the residential space. In the residential space, there were certainly kind of more women in the mix. When I moved to the construction company that was on the commercial side, there was me and one other woman on the team, and that was pretty consistent for most of well, we added a couple of women, but overall, 100 employees and maybe 4 women at most on the team. It was a pretty
Wow.
unusual space to be in, and certainly unusual to be in a top seat in the organization and have a team really trying to lean in. And so it was a learning curve for me to figure out, going back to my comment about Gumby, right? How do I step in? How do I be as elegant as possible, right? Yes, I'm going to be changing some things, and just me being here is disruptive. However, at the front end in particular, how do I step in and keep myself grounded in a place of curiosity and in a place of openness and in a place to honor first and understand first, what is this landscape? What is the dynamic? Where might I fit in? And then if there's something that needs to be shifted, we can look at it together. We make the turn together versus had I, and I think would have been true even if I was a man coming in, right? I think leaders make the mistake sometimes of coming in and thinking we have the answers, or it's my timeline, not your timeline. But it really is, there's an elegance of the dance that is not to be underestimated when you're looking to get people to buy in and to follow your lead.
Yep. And I guess no matter who you are in business, I mean, we've got to do that dance. And I think the better we could be at that and being sensitive to the people, because again, that's probably what you have to coach a lot of people through, like the CEO saying, hey, it's my way or the highway, and this is what needs to get done. But then you're going to end up with a team not bought in. Or as my coach says, you get the corporate nod and you get them to agree, but then they leave the room and they're like talking stuff behind your back. They're like, no way is this going to work.
Yeah, and going back to our conversation earlier about stories, so much of the stories that we make up are based on the tone of voice that someone uses, or that person looked at me or they didn't. Like, so much of what we interpret and take out of a moment in time and decide is, quote, the truth. Most of it is based on the nonverbals and not on actually what was said in terms of the words that were spoken. This is something that as leaders, we have to be mindful of. We have to be mindful that just by virtue of being in the top seats of the organization, we're bringing in status, we're bringing in things that are going to already prompt people to write certain types of stories about what that must mean about who we are. And so if we're not mindful of showing more sides of us, of showing that, yeah, I can be strong, I can absolutely hold the line and I'm not going to waver from the line, but I also can be the most compassionate person that you've ever seen. Right? We have to have the and that was, and I would say that with the teams that I had the privilege of leading in the construction space, when they figured out that yes, I was absolutely going to hold the line. And if there was something that particularly safety related, if there was a safety thing that I saw, I was going to show up in a way that made absolutely clear to everybody, this ends now and the whole job site comes to an end. Like, could I bring that? Yes. Did I bring that on occasion? Yes. But was that all I brought? No. I also brought in, Eric, how are your kids? Or Eric, I saw what you did over there. That was excellent work. That was really great quality, right? I showed that I had different speeds. I showed that I had different things that mattered, not just this do as I say, as fast as I say to do it energy, which I think made a difference.
Yeah, that's great advice there too, because I think too many times we feel like we got to show one side of ourselves. Some of the like the best reception I've gotten to, like, when I try to connect with my team, especially for me, my team's like 7,700 miles away, so we don't get to see each other too often. But opening up and being vulnerable to them in front of them sometimes does just to show a different side, because it's hard to do that through Zoom when we're on these like meetings. So being out there and like, oh, you know what, I really messed that one up, guys, and I take accountability for this, and this is how we could move it going forward. But yeah, that's a good point, is just showing different sides of yourself, which I feel like lately I've been on this one particular track. I need to show the other side sometimes. But yeah, that's fascinating. So now, with all of the work that you've been doing, I know in the intro we talked about that there's a book that you're working on, and I'm excited to hear more about that because I don't know, I think it'd be cool to compile all these stories into a book. So you're actually doing it. So tell me more, like what are you working on? What do you hope to get out of, what story are you trying to get out there about yourself?
Yeah, thank you for that question. This book has really been a decade in the making, longer, I think, if I'm, but really a decade that I've actively been thinking about how do I write this? How do I tell the story? Am I ready to tell the story? I've had i- i- re- some interesting personal things that have happened kind of right alongside and in the midst of the most tremendous professional success also was right alongside some of the deepest loss on my personal side. I over the last 13 years, I lost my dad, my brother, my grandmother, my mom, and my stepdad, and all within a pretty short period of time, which gave me a lot of sobering moments to take a look in the mirror and ask the question about how am I showing up? And is the way that I'm showing up, is it enough? Is it worthy enough? Right. For when my brother passed away and I got the news that he had died, it was a very sobering moment for me to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I am not proud of the way that I showed up with him in the last stretch of his life. And it felt, to use a word from your language, your stream, right? It was very unfinished. It was very unsatisfying. There was a lot of regret. There was a lot of like, well, what do you mean I don't get a chance to go and do this over or make amends? And it prompted me to take a deep hard look and say, I have two choices. I can accept that this is the end, or I can use this as a springboard and as a new line in the sand to say, I am going to engage differently. I am going to design my relationships with more intention. I am going to pour into the people around me and into the quality of our final moments now by design. I'm going to do everything I can so that the next time I get one of these phone calls, yes, I'm going to be sad. However, I'm also going to have a knowingness that I played that relationship well. And I, I am very proud to say that when I got the call 4 years later that my mom had passed away, that it was exactly that. It was this, I am sadder than I have ever been. I don't know how I'm going to move into the next day or year or decade or whatever without her here. And I am so proud of the way that I showed up with her, that she showed up with me. Our relationship was clean. We were champions of each other. I can hold my head high. There's no regret. And so the book is really about my own journey. And selfishly, I'm writing the book because I want my kids to know and to be able to see my own journey and hopefully have that as a touch point to, number one, know me in a different way, but also to hopefully help them understand and make decisions to guide their own lives going forward. And so I'm very much in the beginning stages of getting it off the ground, but it next year will be the 10-year anniversary of when my mom passed away, and I just had this knowingness over the last couple of months that this is the time. This is the right season to write it and to put it out into the world. And if it helps even one other person in some capacity, then it will have been a venture that was well worth it.
And you definitely hit on something personal for me. I know I sent in the email when we were like since we met in April, my dad had passed away, and he's probably the close. Like I haven't had any close family members like that have passed yet, fortunately. But it does, have me thinking a bit about, like right now, I just came back from this trip from Asia where I was gone for a month. We're trying to transform this company. I'm trying to be one of those companies that 10x's the business, like I was saying earlier. So
Mhm.
I'm asking for advice for myself, including for the listeners. But yeah, I mean, that if I were to be honest about how I show up for some people right now, it's not things that I'd be proud of. Something I've definitely got to work on. So I think that's definitely a worthwhile book, especially with business leaders. You probably see it. I'm sure that's probably some of the motivation is you see people like me going through these struggles, and we could do better. And it's the best time to know about it is now instead of when it's too late. Cause I've had a lot of those moments these last couple of weeks where I was like, dang, like just some silly thing. Like I got this 3D printer set up and my dad was like a machinist person that job industry was gone a long time ago, but I was like, man, that'd have been cool to show him this stuff, because he would always talk about like measuring tiny things to the thousandths of an inch and making like fabricating tubes for like things like satellites. And now I could, like, it's just crazy the stuff that you could do again with 3D printing technology. Some of it, there's some AI stuff, but I was able to show him some of the AI stuff, which is cool and blew his mind. But yeah, that would have really blown his mind to show him that. So, which I don't have any regrets with him. I feel like I was able to do that. But other family members, yeah, it's something to work on. So thanks for your work on that book, and I know that'll definitely help. Especially your members, like, here, read this. Give it to them to get that information. So now, speaking of like all those conversations again you have with your chairs, I did ask Fred, my Vistage coach, what's a question I could ask you? So here's a question from him. Have you ever had an executive that didn't play in the game, and who's the toughest CEO you've ever worked with?
Okay, so executive that didn't play in the game, meaning the game of Vistage. What game?
Probably Vistage. I think Vistage. Like, as we
Yeah.
talked about earlier, it's a choice. You're there, but then some people, I don't know, like they're there, but they're like, what the heck? It's the same issue. And I'm sure you experience this. We're talking about the same thing again for like month 6. Like, come on, are you gonna apply any of this stuff? So maybe, yeah, I guess who's not playing in the game in Vistage, and then it probably could be the same thing. Who's the toughest CEO? But
Yeah, for me, I would say the toughest people to work with are folks who are sort of one step in, one step out. I say that I want change. I say that I want to be all in, but there's something that's holding me back. And it's not that I'm very good at moving people through that. However, there has to be a willingness, right? The moment that I want it more than the other person, now there's an imbalance that starts to come into the mix. I'm not honoring them because we're starting to possibly shift into a parent-child dynamic or something that doesn't keep that individual at their highest best self, right? Does that make sense? And so it's like this. I try to honor the folks that are considering joining one of my groups by being very transparent on the front end and sharing and giving. I was a Vistage member for several years when I actually ran one of those Vistage member companies, and I processed personal issues, I processed professional issues, and so it's not uncommon for me in my conversations with folks before they join a group to say, look, I'm never going to disclose what somebody else is sharing. However, I absolutely can talk about my lived experience as a member. Here are some examples of the type of issues and topics that I brought in, right? Like I brought in, and I'll talk about some that are deeply personal on purpose to see how does that person lean in? How do they hold space? Is there curiosity? What I try to really invite people to lean into ahead of when they're live in the room with the group is, am I willing to hold space not only for others, but more importantly, am I willing to hold space for myself? Am I willing to be curious and to look? It doesn't mean that I have to take action right away, right? I'm a realist. Sometimes we have to look at things for a while. Sometimes, for myself included, I before any significant breakthrough, 2 things happen. There is a breakdown period that is usually of some sort of massive scale that I look back and go, why did I make it such a big thing or whatever? And there's also somewhere in there this like getting ready to get ready, where I'm kind of, can I, like, trying to figure out, can I believe that new next thing is possible? Can I see myself in that future? Can I trust that if I take a step away from whatever I'm standing on right now, that everything below me isn't going to crumble or the world around me isn't going to implode? And so I don't know if I'm effectively answering Fred's answer or his question, but if people aren't ready, I'm not the right one to work with them. And I guess where I've settled into, there's a season for everything, and sometimes the season isn't now. I've actually had a number of members who, when I first reached out to them 5, 6, 7 years ago, the time wasn't right. And then the time became right, and they're in the groups today. So I don't know. Fred, I love you. That was a challenging question.
You threw it out real quick. You probably didn't put too much thought into it, but no, it's no, thanks for sharing. Cause yeah, the timing part is interesting. And yeah, it could be that maybe it's not the right time, for whatever reason, maybe something going like, got to work through those personal beliefs first before, I mean, it's not an overnight fix, even if people identify it and call you out on it. It's like something that takes time to work through and to get to the realization. Maybe you got to experience some pain first. Some people are like that. And unfortunately, even though you're like, this is what's going to happen, they got to experience it. I think I'm one of those people. Got to experience the pain before you realize, okay, I really got to change. So, and then they come around. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the older I get, the more I realize this game of life, it's a long game. And for me, I think I've settled into, as long as I still wake up and my feet touch the ground, then it's evidence that I haven't learned everything I'm supposed to learn. And so, of course, there's going to be more struggle. Of course, there's going to be more stuff I have to reconsider. Of course, there's going to be more moments where I go, really, really? Now I have to learn that, or I have to overcome that, or I have to, whatever. Okay, it's a long game. When I think about some of the things that I so didn't want to have to learn or figure out 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I look back now and I am so thankful that those happened, because had those things not occurred, I can say with certainty, I would not be the person that I am today. Right? As much as I hate the way that my relationship with my brother ended, I can say with certainty, I am a better person now because of that, because that was such a jarring moment of awareness for me. It was that would I trade that to have him back? Absolutely. But I don't have the ability to make that happen yet, at least that I figured out. So, okay, I'm just going to say thank you for the gift and do my best to pay the learnings and the lessons forward for as long as I'm still here.
Yep. Which is an incredible way to turn it around, and to turn that into a positive, to help inspire other people working through the same thing. So which is powerful. Cool. Well, I guess we're kind of at the end of the show here. So I have my question that I always ask every guest at the end. And, you don't have the gray hair that some of the Vistage coaches have. So you have a lot more journey ahead of you, I'm guessing. But for you, what's something that is unfinished business for you? What's something that, like, maybe a big goal you'd like to achieve, or something you want to do in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest one that I don't know if it's unfinished anymore because I'm in action, right, would be the book for sure. But really it's, my kids are teenagers now. My oldest is a year away from heading off to college. And so this next piece that feels very unfinished and unclear today is, how do I do my part to orchestrate and contribute in creating a meaningful adult relationship with my kids, right? That feels like the next chapter, the next frontier that we're on the cusp of leaning into. And, it's a different version of someone selling their business and transitioning on to what's next, right? We're going to go from life as we once knew it is going to come to a hard stop. So I'm doing my best to proactively think about it and require myself to become a student of it before I'm staring it in the face of the moment of now.
Cool. Well, that's thank you for sharing that. I know for me, I got young kids, a bit younger, still a few years away from the position you're in where they're getting ready to go move out to college. But I know in my group that comes up as issues, oh, the kids are moving out, and what are we going to do? But I'm always watching those conversations very closely, because I'm like, oh, that's going to be me in like 5-10 years. And so I'm curious how they're navigating that. And it is something that I think sometimes we just don't think about, but I like the approach you have, where you start thinking about what that looks like, just like selling a business, like, if you don't think about it and then you're there and it's like, oh, this isn't what I thought, so you have an opportunity to prepare and plan for that. And you're thinking about it now, which I think is awesome. So love the mindset. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today and sharing some of your journey and your perspective on things here. And I know you said you're getting ready to start up some more groups in Vegas. So I'm guessing if people are a business owner in Vegas and they qualify, you maybe have the opportunity to be in one of those groups. But if someone wanted to connect with you or to follow some of your journey, what's the best place to do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can certainly reach out to me at tonya.twitchell@vistagechair.com, or feel free to, if you do show notes, feel free to put my cell phone in there, 702-860-9133. I love helping people find the right group, whether it's a Las Vegas group or really anywhere in the world. I can help connect them to people who are just great humans to know and can help them put a good team around them.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. We'll get some of those links in the show notes here. And for those of you guys watching, if you liked hearing stories like what Tonya shared today and more interviews like that with amazing business leaders, please make sure that you follow us, Unfinished Business with Eric Mulvin, on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, and at Biz with Eric on social media. And until next time, we'll catch you guys on the next episode. See you guys later.
CEOs and visionaries shaping what's to come, building more than profit, lifting everyone. Every path's unique, but it takes a choice to grow. Set your goals and shape the way your future goes. Unfinished business. Where people in tech connect to amplify. Unfinished business. Human intelligence plus AI. Goals that launch you high. Unfinished business. Listen close, and you'll learn why. Subscribe, look for Biz with Eric online, and follow Unfinished Business on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you listen.